If I can get your attention. Oh, this is a good crowd. Look at that. That was quick, Don. Well, I just want to give the welcome. I'm Tony Helfrich, superintendent here, and we were so happy to have such a big crowd. I had one of the 75 grads ask, is this how you always do it? You always do it so it lines up with one of the Hall of Fame inductees in the 50th, and you know, it just happened to work that way. And this is really great that so many people could be here and be a part of this. So we have really appreciated this. I appreciate the vision. Dave Swank and Donna Quayle, who was really the board member that was on there, and certainly some others, but they really had that vision as we talked about what we wanted this to be, not just about what you did in high school. Those are great things. And there's some ways that those get acknowledged, but really finding a way to acknowledge the really amazing things that our Pratt Greenback family has done since they've graduated, and just putting that in front of our students. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dave Swank, and he'll do the opener for us. Thank you, Dave. Thank
you. Well, welcome again. We're excited to see you all here. It's going to be a great night. I'd like to thank the Burton Philly Art Museum and Brittany for hosting us again. This is an amazing venue for us here in Pratt, and we're excited to be here. Great Western did our food today. They're actually caterers out to college, so we appreciate them. Especially like to thank our Hall of Fame committee. Mr. Helfrich mentioned Donna Quayle, also Susan Pixler, Chase Gawley, Don Bueller, Gabe Heredia, and Steve Blankenship. I might mention that Gabe was actually our student council president last year. So one of our visions was that each year our student council president is part of this group. And the idea being that 50 years from now, when all of us are no longer around, there'll be some greenbacks that know how this started and have a vision for this. I'd also like to thank Mr. Helfrich and the Board of Education for their great support. It's hard to believe, but this is now our 5th class, our 5th group. I also might mention that no tax dollars are being used to fund the Greenback Hall of Fame. It's all private money. Chase Gawley will talk more about that later this afternoon. We have a couple of housekeeping items. First off, if you're going to the game tonight, you'll need complimentary tickets. We'd love to have you stop by the table and with the induction plaque and pick a couple up. Also, this video will be posted on our website sometime next week. So if you have friends or family or know people who'd like to watch, you can go back and see that. We've also got the previous 3, 4?
All of them.
All of them. Oh, we've got all of them. So if you want to go back and see the previous classes induction, you can do that too. The permanent display areas in the high school commons. So if you're visiting tonight, both the east and west doors will be open until the game starts about 7. So you can stop by and see that permanent display area. The Hall of Fame was established in 2020 to honor individuals that have made great contributions to the Greenback traditions. If you're in our comments today, you notice those. Grit, team, valor, respect, and passion. And those are ideals that go back generations for Greenbacks. And recently, about 10 years ago, we really formalized that. We believe that the Hall of Fame is an opportunity for us to honor our past and also give our youth a motivating influence for the future. Mr. Helfrich already mentioned this. It's not just about individual success in high school, but really, more importantly, about their positive contributions since high school, not just in Pratt, but in the world in which we live. So at this time, we're going to move forward and honor Ken. I've heard his story once. Today, well, I've heard more than once, but heard it today with the JAG, and he did a wonderful time talking to our JAG kids today. So I'm going to invite David Hughes and Jason Jones to the podium to get this started. Thank you.
Thank you for everybody coming. It's really special that my class 50-year reunion this year, and Ken being part of that, is pretty overwhelming for us. And I think I can speak for most of us. I couldn't imagine growing up anyplace else but Pratt. Is really a special place for me. Ken came in my life. We were probably 2nd or 3rd graders. I lived out on West 3rd, and it had been summertime because I never remember being in my classroom. And so, you know, he showed up at my house, and, you know, we got to know each other and played, and then, you know, he lived west of us, a block or so from the state highway department, and then he's gone. Well, I didn't realize, you know, he had a rough life, or a lot of challenges, you know, transient family, and in, I believe, 5th grade, he was adopted by Cleo and Paul Jones, and, you know, really thankful for that. As a matter of fact, when I was really little, Paul and Cleo lived behind a vacant house that, you know, every couple of months somebody'd move in, and I got to know them, so, you know, kind of also felt that as a special bond. But, you know, it just didn't work out. And with Ken living with them, so I believe it was, he said 5th grade, or excuse me, that 5th grade is when they adopted him, and his brother Danny, and it was, I'm a little more nervous now. We got to talk to a bunch of high school kids today. Been his sophomore year, and he moved in with our basketball coach, Ed Sink. Ed had a son Jerry that was in our class, and then the following year they moved to Medicine Lodge. So, you know, what was Ken going to do? And he ended up renting a house, an apartment just north of the football field. And he lived there the 4 years, his junior, senior, and then both years of junior college. You know, and he kept his grades up. He worked 2 or 3 jobs. He was a 3-sport participant. And I'm telling you, you want to talk about character. We're going to see a video a little bit later that, you know, I was 44 years, I taught school. Yeah, I know some of you guys are probably but, you know, I was always looking for something. We moved up to Wakefield, Kansas, which is up by Junction, Fort Riley, and I had a lot of military kids. And I was always kind of looking for things to relate to them. And this video of Ken showed up. I go, you know, this world record. I mean, I know that guy wouldn't believe me. But anyway, and I thought, man, you guys starting this Hall of Fame, and I thought this was really important. And so that was my part in this. So, Jason?
Call sign Jedi. Fitting because he's a master. Chief Warrant Officer Ken Jones.
I've been flying the Apache since 1986.
Call sign Jedi. Fitting because he's a master at his craft.
Flying in the Army for 35 years.
Now Jones holds a unique distinction. 10,000 flight hours in the Apache. That's like flying 416 24-hour days. Bowman's Brad Rounding served in the same unit in the 6th Cavalry as Jones, the first to fly the Apache.
Not just those hours, but what he's done with those hours. And 10,000 is a milestone no one else has achieved.
Jones is an Apache instructor in the Utah National Guard and supports Special Forces training in the mountains and deserts of Utah. Jones says the state's terrain lends itself to the day and night training required of Apache pilots in Afghanistan.
In the 3 tours to Afghanistan, I ended up with 2,270 combat hours.
Flying is in Jones's blood, but the case could be made that it's also in his DNA. His son Jared, an Apache pilot with the Utah National Guard.
So my father clearly has a passion for the Apache. He's a great teacher and very skilled with the aircraft, and I found that I had a knack for it too.
Experience, Jones says, that served them both when they flew in combat together.
Not very many fathers get to do battle handovers with their son.
It was in Afghanistan that Jones extracted 5 special ops soldiers whose Huey was downed by the Taliban.
You're part of the Apache, you're part of the family.
Jones has been honored for his achievements and dedication in Mesa, where Boeing makes the Apache. and more recently honored by his own unit as he nears retirement. And though Jones's past is being celebrated, in more than one way, Ken Jones is helping shape the future of the Apache.
It's pretty much a dream to fly.
He's been there since the beginning.
In '86, we started with the A model.
And while the pilots are tasked with learning the aircraft, Boeing is constantly learning from the pilots.
Every time you come back from a deployment, Boeing comes and talks to all of the pilots.
Ken Jones is gearing up to take a seat in the latest model Apache before he retires.
Boeing's made great progress on the Echo model. They've restored the performance of the original A model Apache and then some, so it's a much faster aircraft.
Pilot Ken Jones is ready to set off on his next big adventure.
It's exhilarating. The aircraft is an awesome aircraft, and I don't really want to give it up, but it's time to move on to other things.
So on top of that video, I want to talk about how I was growing up in the Jones household. I'm the middle, Jason. My other two siblings couldn't make it here, but I'll cover some stuff for them. So growing up in the Jones household, on top of being a busy Apache pilot, we kind of had the work hard, play hard motto. My dad made time to hang out with us quite a bit, even with his busy schedule. And I think a lot of that was growing up without a father. He wanted to make sure he was there, involved in our lives, which I really appreciate. The other motto I have is keeping up with the Joneses. We overdid that. So, growing up, some activities we did that my dad was involved in or started was basketball. He coached our youth basketball team, Boy Scouts, and then he helped all the way to getting my Eagle Scout. On top of basketball, football, track, ski racing, surfing, the list goes on. But his goal was to introduce us to a lot of things and help us succeed in life. Another thing he said, because he came from nothing, so he's like, you're either getting a scholarship or paying for your own college, but I'll do everything I can to help you get a scholarship. So that hence Boy Scouts and all the sports. And then, go figure, pole vaulting, one of the things he introduced me to is what helped me get into the Air Force Academy. It was kind of funny watching that video because I was thinking about my brother Jared. Initially, he always wanted to be in the Air Force, and I wanted to be the Apache pilot. But my dad was like, go to the Air Force, they treat you better. And you have better job opportunities in some degrees when you finish the academy in the Air Force. So, and then my brother ended up being an Apache pilot, so we kind of swapped roles. But, and then we talk about flying in our DNA. I've not really pushed my son to learn to fly, but very recently he's been extremely motivated, and I'm about to start teaching him how to fly. So, and we'll see if his younger brother gets the bug too. But none of the things I would have achieved wouldn't have been without a loving father that was motivating, pushing me, and firm when he needed to be. So, I just want to say thank you, Dad. And that's all I got.
Hey David, where are you at, man? Thank you for nominating me. I appreciate that. Childhood friends all the way up to we're closing in on 70. Time flies, especially for the class of 75. Jason, thanks. I didn't know I trained you to be such a good speaker. I won't be able to live up to his ability.
Well, I felt red. I don't know if it showed.
So I do want to give a couple thanks out. So David Swank, who helped coordinate this, and the Hall of Fame committee, if that's the right title. I want to say thank you very much for inducting me. And there's many other thanks. I can't possibly thank everybody tonight, but whoever put this on, thank you. You know, the building, the hors d'oeuvres, the whole thing. It's a wonderful event, and I appreciate it very much. My family members that are here, I have my brother Dan, who we've been through a lot, like you heard, from an orphanage to other families and then getting adopted. My sister Linda, raise your hand, Linda, so everybody knows where you're at. Raise yours, Dan. Okay. All right, Parker, raise your hand. This is one of my grandsons, and I've already started flying with him. So, today he came and then he says, okay, I want to hear all about airspace. I'll back up here. And so he's telling me all the rules about different kinds of airspaces and different acronyms that you need to know in the military. He's actually done a good job. I was pretty impressed. My other grandson, Noah, where are you at? Oh, here you go. He's got the bug for aviation, so he bought a drone, and I said, you got to get your commercial drone license. And so we went through all that learning the federal aviation regulations and making him learn airspace. So when we meet later on tomorrow, Parker and Noah are going to talk to each other and quiz each other on airspace and federal aviation regulations. So I'm just giving you advance warning, so you can go back and study that just a little bit, because, you know, you guys are in competition now. He wants to be a pilot too. So it'll all work out in the long run, and God has his plan, and that plan will come to fruition. So now I want to talk about my wonderful wife, Julie. I met her at JUCO in the 2 years after graduating from Pratt High. And I'm like, oh wow, she's beautiful. She's not only beautiful, but she's an awesome helper. And I wouldn't have been as successful if she hadn't helped me. No family's perfect. I push too much. She pulls back a little. And but you know, we made it through. How many years is it? 78. What's that coming? We're coming up on 48. Okay. Anyway, it's been a long time. Away, that time flies so fast. Okay, so now I'm going to look at a note list. I tried not to do this. I do have one friend that made a special trip here, and Will Ruiz. Will you raise your hand back there? All right. Will and I were in combat together, and the Arizona National Guard asked me, as an experienced Afghanistan warfighter, mountain pilot, and other experiences, to come and help them get ready for their trip to Afghanistan. And they helped me get part of that 10,000 hours in a huge way. I imagine maybe 1,500 hours just from helping the Arizona National Guard. So a little bit about Will. Will helped me on a lot of missions. We shot a lot of bad guys, but probably the one that stands out the most with Will is we were based out of a forward operating base near the Pakistan border. We did a lot of missions there, but we got deployed to Kandahar for a short term for the Battle of Musa Kala. You can look it up on the internet, but Will and I were a major part of that battle. And the day before we went out, a friend of ours named Otto, he got shot in an Apache, and it came up and hit his leg, and he ended up needing to get a titanium on. He never flew again. He was an awesome guy, great pilot, great singer. And so we went out the next day, just doing our normal battle stuff, and we're being shot at by a big gun, ZSU 23-4, big giant fireballs coming up at you. And I'm like, oh, they burn out halfway to you, and that's closer than halfway. So I broke off the attack, and we just put missiles on them from a long distance. Then I brought in some F-18s, and we bombed them a lot. And then we went back and cleaned them up with guns. And so Will was with me on that mission. That mission, I don't know, might have been a week long, that we were there shooting and fighting and calling artillery and coordinating with Air Force fighters and Navy fighters. But that's just a mission I forgot about, you know, and I hadn't even worked it into my script. Okay. But I figured I needed to honor Will making that long trip from Arizona to come up here and be part of it. So you heard that I had a rescue. I had a couple important rescues that I participated in. The most exciting one, for lack of a better word, is rescuing the 5 special operators. They were on a super important mission, but their Huey went down and the Taliban started chasing them. So I'm at a super far remote base out in Timbuktu, and we're sitting there at night time, and you won't believe it, but I rarely play video games, but they had PSPs, and they made me start playing this thing in team combat or whatever it was. And so we got the radio call, and we rushed to our aircraft. We're off the ground in like, under 10 minutes, and we head out to where the Huey is. We can see that Huey burning 30 miles away. I'm like, wow, what happened to it? And the reason we can see it that far is we have night vision goggles, and we also have infrared just on the right eye. And we wear both. We have infrared here, and we got night vision here. We can see everything. And at nighttime in the mountains is pretty important. I'm like, ooh, we better get there. So we arrive on station, and we can't find these 5 guys, so we start searching for them. And after a little while, a drone, which didn't have radios at that time, is putting his laser marker down for us to investigate. I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I'm not going to go in until I can find out what's going on. And so we were in the mountains. We climbed up about 12,000 feet so I could get visibility with the closest forward operating base. And they said, yep, that's our drone. And those are bad guys, and we want you to shoot them. Like, okay, these guys make mistakes. I hope that's not friendly. And because they have called me in on friendlies before, but I was smart enough to know, I'm going to sort it out. So this time, when I came in to engage, I didn't shoot directly onto the bad guys. I shot about 30 meters, 30 yards off to the right of them, and immediately they're shooting at me, which makes my job simple. I don't have to guess anymore. And so we serviced that target, and then we continued looking for the 5 special operators. Nowhere in sight. And then finally I get a message. We get digital messages, kind of like text messages. It says, hey, ground convoy that's coming to rescue him is now under attack. So we have to go out there and help those guys. And then we come back, and we're looking for the 5 guys. And the drone illuminates again, and I'm like, oh. So I climb back up, and they say, yep, those are the good guys. And I'm like, oh man, we're getting really low on fuel. And there's no way this ground rescue convoy is going to make it to these guys. This is too far up in the mountains that they don't have the capability to traverse that kind of terrain. And I said, we're going to land and pick these guys up. So the Apache is a guy in the front and the guy in the back. There's no other seats. We're about 4 feet wide. But we got nice things that people can ride on the outside of the aircraft. So we took off our survival vests. We have straps and carabiners. And we strapped 3 of them onto the outside of my aircraft, 2 here and 1 there, and we put 2 on my wingman's outside. And we flew them back to the ground convoy. And the whole time my lights are flashing. Green is good on fuel, but I got red, yellow, and a little green. And by the time I got to the back to the base, I'm down to yellow. And it's flashing red, yellow. Landed, and we made it. It would have been a bad deal if we hadn't got that. But, that was probably the most exciting mission. There's one other one that's noteworthy, and that is the rescue of 4 female volunteer aid workers led by a female British leader and females. They get kidnapped by the Taliban, and so I worked for Delta Force at that time, through an organization called Task Force 160th Night Stalkers. They're the special ops aviation for the Army. And so my job was to support Delta Force. And so this is a very important mission because they're British. Not all of them are British. One was Kenyan and there were a couple others. And so the British government said we want to rescue them. So they sent in, along with Delta Force, what they call the SAS, which is Special Air Services. They go all the way back to World War II. They are the elite guys. And we also have Navy SEALs. And so we planned out this mission, and we flew in. You got to be really ready. I should say, your noise acoustic signature has to be 0. Because you don't want to give away the idea. So they land a long way, the Chinooks land a long ways away from the caves up in the mountains, and they hike all the way in. They were going to boat in, that's why we brought in the Navy SEALs, but the river was pretty much dry, so the Navy SEALs and the Delta Force guys just hiked in. And they snuck into those caves, killed all the bad guys, and none of the 4 females were hurt. They brought them back out, and but now now everybody knows we're there. And so the Taliban is shooting at them a huge amount at that time. And I have an affinity for the A-10 Warthog. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of them, but they are awesome. And so there's 2 of them, and myself and my wingman. And so we attacked those targets. I'm in, off, they're in, off, and we destroyed all those bad guys. The special operators and the 4A workers made it back to a Chinook, and they flew back to a safe base. So there's literally dozens of missions. I can't even remember them all. I journaled a lot of them, but I hadn't even thought about the Battle of Moussa Claw. It's been so long. The point being is, I saw a lot of things in those 2,200 hours of combat time and 3 tours, and I wouldn't have been able to do that kind of stuff if the Army hadn't trained me. So what took me from nothing, and struggling to get ahead, the Army closed that gap and gave me the opportunity to do a lot of good things. And I learned a lot of good things. And I ended up being an instructor pilot at Fort Rucker, the home of aviation, for 5 years, teaching Cobras. And they needed Apache instructor pilots, but there weren't any. So they took us Cobra guys, and they gave us a quick course, and now we're teaching students in Apaches. If you don't know what a Cobra is, if you go to the Pratt Airport, you'll see that Cobra up on a pedestal. That's an E-Pass model Cobra. It's cool. It's got a Gatling gun and a few other things. That Cobra needs a bath. And I don't know who to talk to, but it's dirty. And the birds have had their way with it. So if somebody knows somebody, they could probably take care of that thing. But the Cobra is an awesome aircraft to fly, and so is the Apache. So all that was off the top of my head. Let's see if I missed anything in that sheet of paper. I think it did okay on that. All right, let's see, what else do we got here? I'm getting to that, okay? So Danny and I went from an orphanage to my Uncle Ross Leeper, who was from Pratt, but we lived in California. And we got moved around to different families. And I met David Hughes and the whole process of this when we were young. And Paul and Cleo adopted us, so we went to Iuka. Danny and I went to Iuka. It's the greatest experience I could have had. I had no idea that they had such quality teachers. Now, as I look in hindsight, we had Mr. Husley and Mrs. Rising, and Mrs. Rising made me diagram sentences, and I got really good. And I don't remember what dining participles are anymore, and infinities and gerunds and all that stuff, but she made sure we knew those things. And Mr. Husley, he was an awesome teacher too. Now, there are 2 special ladies that work at the Iuka cafeteria. So where are you at, Kathy Bergman? Raise your hand. Okay, so her mom, Geneva, and Robin Sterrett's mother, who's my best friend, a lot of people don't know that, but we were really good friends. They were the cooks at Iuka, and they did a wonderful job. I look forward to my lunch meal every day. So the other cool things that we did there is we played basketball, and that's where my love for basketball began. About this tall, in 6th grade, I'm like, hey, I'm going to the NBA. I didn't grow anymore. They started me out as center, and that was easy in Iuka. Then by high school, I moved to forward, and as a sophomore, I'm a guard. And I broke my wrist just before football. And so my junior year, I missed both football and basketball. But I still play basketball now. They wouldn't let me play when I was a senior because I was behind the power curve. But so the National Guard and the Army, they're insistent on physical training. And so they gave us an hour every day and 30 minutes for lunch, but I never went to lunch. And I was a lot thinner back then because I didn't eat lunch and I played basketball. But I got real good, and especially shooting 3 points. And we didn't have 3-point line when I was first in. And so now when I play my grandsons, there's a rule. We call it the old man rule. They cannot guard me outside the 3-point line. Because I can beat them with 3-pointers, but I have a hard time if I go inside because I don't move so fast anymore. All right, so enough of that. So I made a couple jokes once. I was on the 2nd highest paid basketball team in Utah, right behind the Utah Jazz. Because the Army paid my salary and I got to play basketball every day. So it was a lot of fun. But still, that wasn't the most fun part. The fun part was learning how to pull a ball. and Robin pole vaulted, and some other guys did. We just taught ourselves, and we learned on a steel pole, and if you got good enough, they'd give you a fiberglass pole. Well, I practiced, you remember, Dan, I had that pole vault pit, we dug out a pole, moved sand, because we used sand pit in Iuka, and I got a steel pole instead of aluminum, it's heavy. But I learned how to vault pretty good, and so by the time 7th grade came around, they said you can have the fiberglass pole, and I won a lot of track meets.
I remember you breaking the pole while I was doing the 440 relay. And that pole broke, that fiberglass pole.
Yeah, I broke some poles and so did Jason. So we all know what that's like. Now, I wasn't as good as David Gardner. He was a year ahead of me. But he was probably 6 or 9 inches higher than me. But I had a fun time. So that led to, teaching Noah. I don't mean Noah. I get grandkids' names mixed up with children's names. But Jason and Jared pole vault, and I coached high school track team. And Jason went on to be the 3A state champion his 11th and 12th grade, which helped him get into the Air Force Academy, besides his good grades, which I made him take the SAT like 4 times. Study this book.
I blocked that memory out.
I went on to high school. You already know the story. I've been on my own since I was a sophomore. I started learning how to fly when I was a senior. About that time, Robin and we got to learn how to fly. And so here's a funny story with Robin, and I can tell it now because it's decades ago. But Robin and I used to go up in the daytime and dogfight each other. Because that's what we could do. We got really good at it. And we did every maneuver you could possibly imagine. I fly and raise power lines, and I play crop duster. And Robin and I got real bold and said, we're going to dogfight at nighttime. I'm like, yeah! Except for we almost had midair. We came so close. It was like we're heading like this, and I did this, and he did that, and we missed each other. I said, we're not doing this anymore. So, Robin was a great friend, and I'm sad that we lost him. He retired from his military career, and a passenger made a mistake that Robin didn't catch, and that resulted in that accident. I was in Afghanistan with Will when I heard, and it tore me apart. There was no way to come home for the funeral, but Robin was a great friend. Robin and I left JUCO on full scholarships, went to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. It's a very prestigious, very expensive school. And we both got a Bachelor of Science in Aeronautical Science, and we got our commercial instrument, our CFIs, our multi-engine in airplanes. And then that made flight school real easy for me, and for the Army flight school. So I graduated #1 there. It was no competition hardly because these guys didn't know anything about flying. I got me the Cobra, they got me the Apache, and it got me where I am now. I taught flight school I was an R&D test pilot for a couple years, and so that's kind of a big thing. Let's just jump to the end because the resume is too long, and I don't want to bore you anymore. So on my 60th birthday, 4 days, which was like 26 January, I have to retire. I didn't have to retire, but I elected to retire at the end of my birthday. On my 60th birthday, my last flight in the Apache was with Jared, and we went out and had a lot of fun. Low level, just having a good old time. So that's, I'm hoping, maybe someday they'll say, oh, you can have another flight. So that kind of, goes through a lot of stuff. And let me just try to wind this up, okay? So, like David said earlier, David Swank, this isn't about me. You know what it's really about? It's to help those young students in high school. Look, I don't have to have everything perfect. If I work hard and do the right things, I can be successful. We learn to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, and that's what I told him. It wasn't on the schedule, but I asked David, I said, man, I'd really like to talk to the students, so they're the ones that need to hear this kind of stuff, because there's broken families everywhere, and these young kids need to know if they work hard and stick to it, they can be successful. So a couple of the things that made me successful, I really did appreciate that we had Fellowship of Christian Athletes in our high school. I heard that they have Fellowship of Christian Students now, I think. Do they still have FCA? Or Okay, but anyway, it was a big thing for me, and it helped confirm my love for Jesus. And my wife says that my guardian angel has a lot of gray hair, and I should have been dead, but he's got some other plan for me, so I guess I'm doing it. So I started flying EMS emergency medical services helicopters for 5 years. Had a lot of fun doing that. But Jason says, Dad, you gotta learn how to fly jets. I'm like, yeah. And so some company hired me, they're called Coletta. And so now I fly patients across the country, whether it's from the US, Canada, or Mexico. 2 weeks ago, I got to go to Canada, Alaska, because I've been to Canada. And we just cover the whole area of North America. And it's been fun. And so one of those days, I'll give it up and start doing some other things. My wife can't wait for that. So I kind of ad-libbed on that, so I want to make sure I didn't miss the last important couple points. We live in the land of the free and the home of the brave. And we wouldn't be free if we didn't have brave soldiers. My heroes are the ground guys in Afghanistan or wherever they are, because they're the ones that have to pay the ultimate price. And I've supported a lot of those guys, and a lot of those guys didn't make it home. And that's the sad. And I've even carried the caskets, onto the C-130s to be transported back to the United States. We did a lot of aid work with the Afghan locals, humanitarian aid. And on my last tour, we lost an Apache. They got shot down by the Taliban. And that time, my son was at that air base where those Apaches were. So it was about an hour before I knew it wasn't Jared. And I'm like, whew. There was a couple of my friends that died. They didn't stand a chance. And the Taliban, basically, put a lot of rounds into that aircraft and they went down. So the point being is our military is important. It keeps us free. Our police is important. They protect us. And our emergency medical services, they're critical to making our country be a good country. So I think in closing, I think what I need to do is just look at my last little closing comment here. Again, thank you, Hall of Fame committee and David for nominating me and all these wonderful things that you've done to help me and the other students. And it's been an honor. And if I miss something, please forgive me, because I tried to ad-lib as much as possible. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, David and Jason and everyone for speaking. Ken, I think one thing that amazes me the most is you talk about your career and your tours and your missions like it's another day at the office. And I'm a contractor, so my days are nothing near as exciting as yours, and it's really cool, not just you, but David and Jason, your guys' stories to hear that. So I'm Chase Colley. I'm on the Greenback Hall of Fame committee. I've been here since day one, and every spring we get our nominees and we go through the list, and I'm born and raised in Pratt, so a fair chunk of them I know, but some of them I don't. Again, I did not know prior, but when I saw your resume, I thought, oh yeah, this is an easy one, so you make our job a little easier, so appreciate that. But thank you, bringing your friends, family, everyone for coming. So this is our 5th year. We've been fortunate. No school dollars pay for this. This is all donations that help for the event, the food, the drinks, and the plaques that go on the wall at the school. So if you're willing and able, much appreciated. So there's plenty of tickets for the game here at 7. Grab some if you need some. Love to have you there. Got plenty of time. More than welcome to mingle, more drinks, more food. So, but appreciate everyone for coming. Oh,
And I have one thing more to say.
go for it.
We talked about, scholarships loans. I want to, if anybody knows the Bill Hampton senior family, he was very nice to me. And I didn't have a lot of money when I was going to Embry-Riddle, but he loaned me a ton of money, and I paid it all back. So if anybody can tell that family, thank you. I would have had a really hard time without that extra money, so I appreciate that.
That's it. I appreciate everyone coming. Thank you.
Thank you.